So you need to not only truly understand the numbers, the value drivers, but you really need to think strategically for the company. Like, how do you actually generate value for the company? How do you actually generate the value for your shareholders?
Hi, May. So thank you so much for joining me here today. So I'm very fascinating about your career journey, especially like when I know you are a fellow of the Casualty Actuarial Society, but now you are working as a CFO for one of the largest life insurance companies in Canada, right? So it's really rare for me. Actually, you're the first one that I could see like a FCAS moving into a life insurance company. So can you tell me and our viewers like a little bit your career journey and the story behind this transaction and how it shaped your career?
Yeah, for sure. So I decided to become an actuary because I was really, really into math since high school. Then I majored in math and economics in college. So I actually decided to become the property casualty actuary because I thought at the time there are way fewer FCAS than FSA. So that was the reason. Then actually half a year into my actuarial career, I stumbled upon this McKinsey quarterly article. And it's like a fascinating article just about business strategy. Actually, my mind was completely opened up by that article, and I just found it so intellectually stimulating. So I actually didn't exactly plan it, but it actually started like a 6-year journey for me to eventually switch from becoming from an actuary to a management consultant. So in those 6 years, I finished my fellowship exams. I did a part-time MBA at New York University. I was working in New York at the time. And then I switched my career to be a management consultant. And then after spending, 6 years at McKinsey, I decided to actually follow a mentor of mine at McKinsey to go into an internal consulting job, and eventually, which lead me to this particular role. So my interaction with life insurance actually started more when I was a management consultant. But I guess, to be picked as the CFO for this particular company, I think is really making use of a combination of the skills that I had as an actuary. So that goes back to the analytical skill, the hardcore, math skill. But then the management consulting skill really allow me to, think conceptually. We always say that when you're an actuary, you have this depth of expertise and you can think very analytically. When I was doing my management consultant journey, I felt like it developed my horizontal, way of thinking, which is more conceptual, connecting the dots. And I think today companies really want CFO to add value both in a horizontal way as well as a vertical way. So you need to not only truly understand the numbers, the value drivers, but you really need to think strategically for the company. Like, how do you actually generate value for the company? How do you actually generate the value for your shareholders? And you need to tell a factual but also compelling story about the business to the market. So I really think that's how, my sort of the combination of my actuarial background as well as the management consulting background come together to enable me to take this role.
Great story. So I'm very interested in reading that article. But yeah, we can talk that.
I can't remember exactly the article anymore, but I have to say, like, when I was an actuary, because I had this desire to change, right? I made a habit of probably printing an article every, 2 days or 3 days. It was something that kept me going for sure. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you say that like when you transition into management consulting, CFO is a path that you had in mind in that, or it just happened? It just happened with your experience in management consulting and going with your mentor and stuff. And then this is like, oh, there's a potential path, or it's were given to you, or you kind of like seeking it out.
So I would say it completely happened. I actually, because when I was thinking about, having this chat with you today, I actually thought back when I was a first year actuarial student at Cigna. Actually, that was back in the US. I was sitting, a hall with all the actuarial students. I remember the CFO of the company at the time came to talk to us, and he wasn't a former actuary. And I just at the time felt like he's so distant, right? I didn't even think, it was something that I could do or I even wanted to do. I just felt it being very distant. So I would say it was actually completely just happened. But I do think, if I thought back about were there things that I was very deliberate about, in my journey. I have been now working close to 20 years. So I thought there were probably two things I was very deliberate about. One is I just always want to learn something new. The reason I decided to become an actuary is because I thought, by taking exam, I can actually learn something new every time, every day. So that was the reason I decided to become an actuary. When I decided to do my part-time MBA, I felt like, great, now I have all this free time after finishing my exam. So I wanted to learn something new. And really the MBA courses open up my mind completely, so that was good. And then when I was a management consultant, by throwing myself into life insurance, I felt that was fun because that's something that I really didn't understand much as a casualty actuary. So I think that was that one factor was always true and always very deliberate. And then the other factor that was very deliberate is following good people. So I probably had, if I count, I probably had 10 plus mentors in my career that I would say they're truly my mentors. They have touched me in different ways. And then out of those, 10 plus mentors, there were probably 2 or 3 that I developed such a deep relationship that they have opened up doors for me. And I had mentors when I was an actuary. I had mentors when I was a management consultant. And now I have mentors in my current company. But I was very, very intentional about who are the leaders that I follow. They need to not only inspire me from a content or we say IQ perspective, but they also need to inspire me in their values. So I just feel like because I do put a lot into my job, I want to work for people that I just agree with them in terms of values. And I did so that means along the journey, I intentionally follow people that just inspire me as people, but I also decided to leave some people because I just couldn't agree with their value, even though they could be like extremely smart people. So I think those two factors were always constant, and I was very deliberate, in my career.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially like the ongoing learning. And when you also say that, like when you took the MBA, it's open your mindset as well. Yeah, I did an MBA part-time too. And with being with like people that not actuaries and also from different sector with different experiences, like totally, I think that is where we can learn from other people. And then when you're talking about different mentors and for sure, like I recall, I watched a video where they say like the career coach or a mentor can help speed up your process for you to know which directions you should go for. You can learn it by yourself, but it takes longer, right? So by learning from others, that really speed up your process.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that mentor point, I had a memory of, one of my first mentor that really impacted me or impacted my career in a very significant way, because I was just maybe like 2 years into the actuarial career. I was sitting in the cafeteria with this mentor, and then I was telling him that I'm thinking about maybe doing a part-time MBA. And I was, I told him that I'm quite fascinated by this company called McKinsey. And then he said, May, you know what? I think in 10 years, you can be anything. You can become a partner in this, the current firm I was working for. You can become a chief actuary, or you can become a McKinsey partner, like whatever you choose to be. I mean, for somebody who is only like 2 years or 3 years into her career, like somebody saying this to you, it just makes you feel like, wow, like I have potential and there's possibility in the world. So I feel like the best mentor kind of does that, right? They believe in you more so than you could believe in yourself at the time. So I was like, I would forever be grateful for that.
Yeah, I totally can relate because I remember I also asked one of my previous leader also like I consider my mentor as well. And could see that sometimes I doubt myself on technical aspect and stuff. And then he gave me the reassurance, right? I chose you for this. So believe in yourself and then you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really boost your confidence.
Yes.
Yeah. So now let's dive into the day-to-day aspect of your role as a CFO. So can you give us a glimpse into like your responsibility and maybe the challenges that you have to encounter in this position?
Yeah, for sure. So the way that I actually spend time, by the way, I am quite new into this role. But I was the deputy CFO for 2 years before that. So it's still a bit of a transition for me right now. So right now, the way that I spend my time is maybe 25% or so on the fundamentals, because as the CFO, you need to care about reporting. You need to know just all the the cash flow, the P&L, the asset, like all the fundamentals. So that's probably 25% of my time. Then the other 50% of my time is really on change initiative, strategy execution. So I think that's actually how you can add more value than just a traditional, let's say, bookkeeping CFO, right? Because we're in that very unique position where we have access to all the data in the company, and we have an appreciation for exactly how the company makes money. How does the company actually generate value in for shareholders? So a lot of these changes could include, thinking about our earnings trajectory, thinking about our expense trajectory, and also thinking about where are we going to invest the next dollar in the business. So all of these are quite strategic and quite change oriented. So that's probably where I spend 50% of my time. And the rest of the 25%, I would say it's all peer management and senior management, senior executive management. So I am sort of in the center of all the financial and actuarial leaders in the company. So I spend a fair amount of time just making sure that everybody's on the same page. I am of course the linchpin between my team and then the board and the senior management. So I spend a lot of time just one-on-one with those people, really getting to know those people, because in a company, especially in a CFO position, you're sort of in charge of budget. You're in charge of, where does the next dollar of investment go? So sometimes what you see is creating value for the company may not be in the best interest of some other executive. So you really need to make sure that the relationship is there, the trusting relationship is there, then you can have the tougher conversation when your interests don't exactly align. So I definitely spend at least 25% of my time on those just pure relationship management, a lot of one-on-ones. That's actually a skill that I think I picked up when I was a management consultant, just about how do you align people behind the scene such that when you're actually going to push for a major change, people are actually rallying around you and want to go for that change. So that's how I spend my time. In terms of challenges, I would say very frankly, for anybody who is stepping into a role like this, you would feel like you are now right in the center of the politics per se for the company, right? And there's like politics in every company, and politics is not a bad thing. Like, I don't view politics negatively. Politics is, at the end of the day, just dynamic between people, but you need to really spend a lot of time understanding why people behave the way they behave, why people think about things the way they think. So for me, it's like now I am really in the middle of all of those. So I'm still learning how to navigate through those. And there's always this fine line between how do you continue to be the authentic self that you are, but then still, you want to be authentic, you want to be honest, but then you also want to be very careful about people's feeling. And I do realize that now, everything that I say could be amplified 10 times or, be quoted 10 times in other places out of context. So I need to learn how to be more purposeful and more intentional about what I say. So these are all, things that I'm still learning as I'm stepping into this role.
Yeah, those are very insightful. And like, I recall talking to another exec, and she was commenting that being like, as you climbing up and being a higher position, sometimes it feel lonely because again, you in certain position that maybe you not be able to share certain informations, or you have to in the middle to maneuver of different relationship or the dynamics and stuff, right? So I can see that's the way you're talking about the politics or about the relationship, understanding other people behavior and so on. Like, is that something that you also feel as your current role or from your recent experiences as well?
It's interesting. So I never feel lonely myself, but I've seen that a lot, and I've felt that a lot when I was counseling executives, when I was a management consultant. I think the reason I never felt lonely is because I think there's tremendous energy I can still draw from, whether it's from my peers or from my senior leaders, because a lot of them continue to serve as my mentors, even in my new role. And there's another lens that I always put on my job, which is, you can view yourself as, now you're more high up and therefore you could feel lonely, or you can feel like, now I'm more influential, I can actually help more people. So it was a bit of a practice that I started for myself, a while ago. I said, for every meeting that I'm having today, by the way, I'm a Christian, so I do have a Christian framework of thinking about things. I just say, this is like the God's blessing for me today. Like, God wants me to meet with these people. So what is the best thing I can do for these people today? Like, is there something that I can help them? Because then I realized that there's actually a lot of things there are a lot of different ways I can help people because of where I am in the company now. And once I sort of, have that mindset, it kind of takes a lot of the pressure away from me. And it really makes the interaction like really about the other person in the meeting. And we actually end up forming a partnership, much more quickly, and we can get more things done. So that's a bit of, of course it's a little personal, but that's the way that I sort of deal with, the mental pressure that can come with the job, and actually found that quite effective.
That's very powerful. Because I think you touch on essentially it's also the mindset, right? The mindset is the glass half full or the glass half empty. When you actually could see things in a more positive way, then I think we would naturally have more energy and have more drive to tackle things. Yeah. So, and I think sometimes when we are so busy or caught up by many different things, we forgot about that basics underlying. So I think it's a really powerful technique to just thinking every day, appreciations, right? The day we have, the role that we can play, and the potential change that we can have influence in our daily life or the people that we work with or we interact with, even at work or at personal life.
Completely, yes.
Yeah. So let's talk more about the essential skill and quality that an aspiring CFA should develop in their career. And I guess I want to also tackle from a point of an actuary who looking to go on this path to become the future CFO as well.
Yeah, so maybe we can broaden the question a little bit to be, if you're an actuary and you're thinking about, becoming a business leader and executive, like what are the essential skills that one can sort of focus on? So I think, of course, coming to our core, which is this financial capability, this very sharp analytical capability, I think we should always make sure that we hone it and we really have this as our calling card. It is when I was a younger actuary, the question that I asked my mentor is always, I don't just want to focus on this analysis, tell me where this analysis gets used in the business and what business problem we're really trying to solve here, because that makes me more intentional about what's the purpose of me doing this analysis, who is the audience behind the scene, and that actually makes my analysis more purposeful and more useful at the end of the day. So basically make sure we're sharpen this analytical skill in the business context that we're in. Then the second skill I think is really important is this conceptual skill that I was talking about. So another way to put it is just connecting the dots, right? So for every problem or every project that I'm facing, I want to understand what's the narrative around this question, because there's always a narrative. And what are the different teams and departments that really need to come together to solve this problem? So kind of think about all the friends and partners and sometimes, enemies per se, or opponents per se in this problem, or maybe just people that may not agree with what you're going to do. So you need to spend more time to overcome that challenge. So you do need to map that out and think that through. And it's extremely important as you become more and more senior, because as you become more and more senior, actually doing the stuff and solving like a very well-defined problem become less and less. Most of the stuff that we're doing involve some change, involve some ambiguity. So I think that conceptual thinking becomes extremely, extremely important. And then I would say that the third skill that is really important is just develop some influential skill, develop some negotiation skill. So a lot of people, for me, it was also a breakthrough when I start to feel like an executive is actually my peer. Because, you will get to a certain point in your career, you realize, okay, I am actually facing this executive that I may not have much common ground with, but now I need to go into some deep and challenging conversation. So how do you actually view that person as a peer, and then start to build this trusting relationship in a very short period of time? I think that's a skill that a person can develop actually very intentionally and quite early in their career. And that will be a skill that carry them very far in their career.
Yeah, great. Very great lessons. And I totally agree. Like on the first one is for me, it was opening when I first took my business lesson and they have the question, so what? Whatever you do, give me the so what. And sometimes, as you say, like at work, we may forget, especially like sometimes actually we just like going to do the analysis, and then we're like, oh, this was so interesting. This was so interesting. We got carried away. And then so we just have to like come back to like, oh, what is the so what in what we're trying to solve? And maybe there are multiple different so what, and that's fine, but we have to be more intentional in our work. And that's I think that's where like the actuarial moving on to like more like the business language and communications. Yeah, totally. Actually, the interesting thing is now I realize, because you're in risk, actually I took an intentional move towards the tail end of my actuarial career as I went into ERM, enterprise risk management, because I realized that's one function that you can do as an actuary that actually touches every aspect of the business. So I do encourage actuaries who are thinking about expanding their career, looking for roles that can allow them to not just touch the traditional actuarial area, but really push them to touch all aspects of the business. I really think that could be the jumping off point for somebody who want to, go into other career paths other than just the traditional actuarial path. Yeah. Thank you for promoting the risk area. Yeah, I need more talent into this.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. So given like your very diverse range of experiences, and then like what kind of lessons now that you're looking back to your career, right? To like what any specific lessons or insight along the way that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is going back to what I was saying before. I think really focus on finding the mentors in your career. And I think this is probably a point I make for women especially minority women as well, because it's just it's like you're walking a jungle and you really want the guides to help you. So I think, and a lot of people actually ask me, how do you actually find a mentor? And actually, it needs to be organic. You need to take the initiative, and the golden pickup line is, can you give me advice on XYZ? And it's really not that hard once it becomes a muscle that you're, very used to pulling out. And also I find that a lot of senior executives actually are very welcoming to people who come to them for advice. I always listen to, somebody saying, my door is always open. If you want to have a chat, just, put some time on my calendar. Even though at the time I might feel like I have nothing in common with that person, I would still just take the initiative, spend that 15 minutes, because you never know what you might learn about that person, and you never know where this professional mentoring relationship might lead your career to. So I really think the mentors that I followed did wonders in my career. So that's probably lesson number one. Lesson number two is actually a bit philosophical. I as you asked me, did you ever intend to be CFO? I said no. I always think that, and I always see a lot of people, around me that are very focused on, what's the next title? How much money am I going to get paid? Actually, throughout my career, I just never ever worried about it. Like, I just never really worried about title, and never worried about how much money the company is going to pay me, because as an actuary, I think in general, we're paid quite fairly already because there's a market rate. So given that fact is already true, why not just take away that worry from your head and just really, really focus on, do I enjoy the content? Do I enjoy the people that I'm working with? Do I enjoy the company culture that I am in? Because I really think when all those things align, more than likely you will be at a very good place in your career, and then title and money would just follow. So I just think that's actually, that wasn't like a lesson that I intentionally took. But then when I look back, I realized that's something that just allowed me to focus more on my job than all those other things that is actually a bit out of control, meaning like title and money and, those type of things. And then the last lesson that I think is a little bit of what we talked about. Actually, I read a book when I started working, and I think it was a book written by one of the most successful, the founder of one of the most successful sports agent company. And the first lesson he said is, try to help others being successful around you, and you will be successful. So now I think that lesson rings so true, throughout my career. And at this point in my career, it rings even more true. So I really think if we can if we can just focus on the other person rather than ourselves, it really take the pressure off when you're getting to something new, when you're climbing up the ladder. Because, the moment you check your ego at the door, the moment you don't care about what is it what's in it for me, but what's in it for the other person, I just feel like all the magic happens at work, and probably in life as well. So that's the third lesson that I want to share. So.
Wow. Thank you so much for all of those valuable lessons and also insight that you shared today. It's really a great pleasure for have you as our guest. So yeah, thank you so much, May, for all your time.
And I know that I looked at your signature. I was like, wow, like you're probably one of the people that I've ever met that just has such a diverse range of accomplishments. So congratulations. And I think it's a fantastic initiative that you're doing, on YouTube and just helping other actuaries. I'm sure your fans community really appreciate what you're doing here. So, and thank you for having me. It's an honor.